He called me dead weight and legacy bloat in a slick suit and teeth too white. He thought his AI touchpoints could replace my 15 years of client trust. He didn't know that 3 of our biggest accounts, the whales, had contracts structured around one thing, me. When he demanded I return to work after firing me, I showed up, but not to beg. I came to watch him read the fine print of Section 12C, the clause I wrote, that demanded a mandatory buyout equal to 2.5 times the annual revenue of every client they just lost. Welcome to Karma Chronicles, your ultimate destination for thrilling revenge stories, where corporate hubris always meets its match. If you believe arithmetic is justice, hit that subscribe button and share this story. I knew the axe was coming the second he leaned on my cubicle wall like he owned oxygen. Bryce Thompson, the new VP, slick suit, teeth too white for someone who's never missed a bonus. "Sweetheart," he began, "your little handshake diplomacy thing? Cute, but we're moving into a more scalable model." Translation: "You're fired, but I'll do it with a grin, so you think it's a compliment." 10 minutes later, I was in a glass fishbowl with HR, staring at a severance packet they slid over like it was a birthday card. My badge was deactivated before I'd even finished signing. As I walked past my desk for the last time, I let my fingers brush the spine of my dog-eared lighthouse binder. That binder contained 15 years of proprietary relationship maps, renewal scripts, and client trust you can't log in Salesforce. The same binder he just called Replaceable. 3 of those accounts, the whales, had key person writers in their contracts. My name, Vivian Hayes, spelled out in black and white. No me, no contract. Bryce didn't even blink. Somewhere in his buzzword blender brain, he thought AI could replace a 6 a.m. coffee with a client whose kid's science fair project I sponsored. On my monitor was a sticky note that had been there for years. Check Section 12C. I wrote it during a late-night contract review years ago after a prior exec tried to cut me out of a deal. That clause was my quiet insurance policy. I didn't beg. I didn't argue. I didn't even look back at Bryce. He's the kind of man who thinks winning is hearing himself talk louder than you. My win would be quieter, paper cuts, measured and timed, until he was standing in a boardroom, wondering why the air felt so thin. I walked out, heels clicking on tile, tote bag swinging at my side. I went home and opened my old files. I knew exactly how they'd handle transitioning my accounts. A single webinar and a string of mass emails written like bad press releases. Client number 1 was the first to blink, sending a beautifully polite, nuclear-grade email. Per Section 14.2, due to the key person change, we are exercising our right to terminate for convenience, effective immediately. It was less a goodbye and more a formal obituary for Bryce's career longevity. That account alone was worth more in annual revenue than his entire department's combined salary. I spent 7 years building it brick by brick, and now gone in the time it took them to click send. I baked a pie, peach bourbon, my grandmother's recipe. When it came out of the oven, I scrawled, "Cost of doing business" in whipped cream across the top. The truth was, those key person writers weren't some freebie. I negotiated every one myself. They were rare because companies don't like being handcuffed to a human, but my clients insisted because they knew they were buying me. Client number 2 and client number 3 followed suit, their termination notices arriving with surgical precision. All 7-figure accounts gone. All the VP had to show for it was a webinar nobody watched past slide 4. The chaos inside was described by a friend as a kitchen catching fire while the head chef insists the smell is fine. Then came the real comedy. The CEO's assistant, who had never spoken to me, sent an email. "Urgent. Need your retention scripts ASAP." They had no clue those scripts, the proprietary Lighthouse methodology, weren't company property. I licensed them to the company annually. The day they walked me out was the day that license expired. Every use since then was willful infringement. My phone lit up. Caller ID. The company. Curiosity got the better of me. Per your contract, the CEO's voice barked before I could even say hello, you are required to return immediately. We can and will sue to compel performance if necessary. His tone was gravel and caffeine. Fine, I said. Let's read the contract together. I could hear his jaw tighten. The silence that followed wasn't confusion. It was the faint awareness of a man stepping onto thin ice. The invitation came. Emergency strategy session. Mandatory attendance. I accepted and replied with one line. Please confirm counsel will be present. I wasn't stepping into their boardroom without a witness whose job it was to read the same language I was about to hand them. Part 3. The Boardroom Crush. I walked into the boardroom dressed the way I do when I know I'm going to war. Neutral silk blouse, navy blazer, carrying a slim leather folio. The CEO, tie askew, was at the head of the table. Bryce, the VP, was there, leaning back with that dying smirk. I laid my folio on the table, unzipped it slowly, and slid a copy of my employment agreement toward the general counsel. Let's read it together, I said evenly. I placed yellow sticky flags on Section 12C and Exhibit D, Employee-Originated Accounts. The general counsel adjusted his glasses and started reading. At first his eyes moved quickly, then his pen slowed. He glanced at Exhibit D, then back to Section 12C, then up at me with an expression that was no longer neutral. I didn't rush him. Storms are more powerful when they have room to gather force. The general counsel finally set his pen down, flattening his palm over Section 12C like he was holding it in place. He read aloud for the room. Upon termination without cause, any attempt to compel service triggers a mandatory buyout equal to 2.5 times the trailing 12-month revenue from those accounts. The CEO leaned back, as if physical distance from the paper would change the words printed on it. Bryce muttered something about overly generous language. Counsel didn't even look at him. Did you terminate her without cause? Counsel asked HR. The HR director's silence was enough. It wasn't the pause of checking the record. It was the pause of someone who already knew the record would hang them. The general counsel ordered finance to pull the numbers. 10 minutes later, the total was announced like a confession. A high 7-figure revenue stream multiplied by 2.5. The buyout number didn't just land, it crushed the air out of the room. Then ops made things worse. We did use her lighthouse scripts last week. Willful infringement. Fee shifting mandatory. The damages calculation had just tripled in counsel's head. I opened my folio again and laid down 2 envelopes. Option A, Option B. I slid them forward, side by side, like a magician revealing the final trick. You can open them now, or you can open them later, I said evenly, but the clock's running either way. Option A, the narrow escape. Retain me as an independent consultant at $900 an hour, 200-hour minimum, payable in advance. The VP resigns. Public apology issued. Lighthouse license reinstated at triple the previous rate. Option B, the bloodier choice. I decline. I join a competitor who has already papered SOWs with my 3 whales. You wire the buyout amount plus infringement fees by Friday at 5 p.m. I rested my fingertips lightly on the 2 envelopes. It wasn't anger anymore. It was arithmetic. Numbers with teeth. Bryce finally found his voice. This is extortion. The lighthouse methodology is company property. Counsel finally turned to him. It's not yours. The words landed like a gavel. I slid over the access logs, timestamps and user IDs, proving willful infringement. Counsel nodded once, mentally recalculating the damages figure. The CEO's jaw worked. What would it take to make this go away? I tapped the thicker of the 2 envelopes, Option B, and stood. I wasn't here to beg. I was here to watch them read their own signatures and realize exactly what they'd agreed to. The whales didn't choose your logo, I said, sliding the final invoice closer. They chose me. The CEO cut Bryce off with a curt, "Close it." I left the invoice on the table, left the silence that came with it. By the time the wire hit my account, my old badge wouldn't open the lobby turnstile anymore, and my calendar already full.